Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, and I welcome you to our Campaign for America broadcast. Folks, as you know, we have a lot of challenges here in America. We're dealing with a situation that we didn't believe we would be dragged into, but certainly we are in a tough situation. But saying that, we're not going to forget you. We're not going to forget our Canadian neighbors, and we're going to continue to fight the good fight of faith with you to preserve your freedoms and your liberties in Canada. Now, indeed, I consider what went on with the revocation of the Emergency Act a victory. A victory because your voices were heard loud and clear all over the world, not just in Canada, but here in the United States and in every country you can imagine that was in touch with me. What you proved was that a peaceful demonstration with honor, with dignity, protected the integrity of your nation. The pride that your children will be able to point to as they grow older and see what occurred in your time is something that is irreplaceable. So just keep in mind, folks, that a lot of people might say, well, it was maybe a little victory, not a big one, but every step of the way, things don't change overnight that quickly, but you ought to be proud of yourselves because you did impact a lot of people on this planet. And I can tell you this, you certainly impacted the American people and the truckers that are now en route as we speak to Washington, D.C. And so I just want to start off by commending you all for what you did and how you did it. But the Canadian people deserve some answers to some questions that they have. And they got a lot of questions. And I have a lot of questions, but there are a couple of issues that I want to talk about tonight to you regarding Canada before I get to the U.S. problems and the Russian-Ukraine war. I want to address the issue of police aggressiveness. Now, I'm an expert in this field, folks, because I've been a police officer for 38 years. It's a long time. Stepped up every single way from patrolman all the way up to the commander of a detective bureau, of a criminal investigation division. And during the course of my career, I was able to speak to police officers who did all sorts of things, tactical squads, riot control, the mounted police, and on and on and on. I also did some training in police departments and spoke to trainers that are experts in their fields. And so I have a couple of questions regarding two out of maybe hundreds of incidents regarding the police response in Canada. I want to talk about the horse, the famous horse. The famous cop on the horse that appeared to have trampled a woman as they were going into this crowd. We all saw the video. Folks, it was appalling to me. It was horrifying to me. But I'm not an individual who has ever been involved with the mounted police. So I took that video to a friend of mine at the NYPD here in New York Police Department, who works with horses. I asked him to look at it. And his first reaction was, well, shall I say his first question was, why did they need horses? And I said, well, why do you ask that question? He actually said, look at the people. They're peaceful. Maybe they don't want to move. There's passive resistance, but I'm sure the police departments in Canada have tactical units and training on how to remove crowds without being that aggressive, as we do, in his words, in New York City. I have never seen, folks, never seen the New York City Police Department, largest police department in this country, maybe in the world, use horses on peaceful demonstrators. Yes, on violent, disruptive demonstrators. Yes, there is a need for that. But his reaction was, why did I have horses there? And then he said something to me very interesting. He said, well, replace the horse with a car. And if a police officer was in a car and was going into a crowd, would the cop in the car have run over the woman, or would he have stopped? Or would he have ever brought the car into the crowd? So my point is this. I have no idea why on earth the police in Canada thought it was necessary to bring horses in, knowing that horses are animals. Look, I have a German Shepherd, an attack dog. He is tough, he is strong, but he is as lovable as he is tough and he is strong. But the trainer told me this, and this goes with regard, I guess, to any animal. He said, remember, Lieutenant Rogers, your lovable, beautiful German Shepherd is an animal. He has animal instinct. You don't know from day to day what his behavior may be. Just make sure you have him under total control And if he begins to get out of line, then you kick in your training. My point is this, folks, horses are animals. You don't know if they're going to go into a crowd like that, if they're going to kick somebody in the face, if they're going to trample somebody. It's not the horse's fault. It's the cop's fault. Now, listen, my son's an active police officer. My whole family were cops and military. I have a career military and law enforcement background, as you know, and I emphasize that because I will defend police every step of the way with regard to the actions they take on any given day. But I will not defend what is wrong. I will not defend police officers that are using aggressive, excessive force on people who are conducting themselves in a peaceful way. That would have never happened here, folks. I know we've got our problems here, but like I said, I just find it incredible that they even brought horses in. Now let's go to the more troubling video. The more troubling video, folks, was the one sent to me, which I'll tell you, I could not believe what I was seeing, but you know, videos don't lie. I'm going to set it up for you. A trucker, he's in his truck. Police officers approach him. The trucker's sitting in his truck, minding his own business. Very polite man. He rolls the window down. Can I help you, officer? The officer, talking to him, very polite, said, sir, you have to move your truck. And the trucker was in compliance with the cop. You know, we tell people every day we tell people, don't resist the cops, do what they say, and there's not going to be any confrontation. So this trucker decides to do what the cop said. Yes, sir, I'll move my truck. Can you tell me why? The cop was polite and explained that to him. So now the trucker says, look, I have a problem with moving my truck. There's barriers in the back. There's barriers over there. This is a large truck. What am I going to do? The cop says, well, you got to move the truck. Now things started to escalate, but there was no yelling back and forth. The trucker was very calm, and the cop kind of remained calm. And then I noticed something. And folks, this was really, I mean, the worst thing that a cop could do in any situation, unless it's a very violent situation. I'm watching this on video, this exchange, right? Then I look up out through the window. This is all on video of the truck, the front window, the driver's side. A cop comes up with a gun, and he's pointing it at the windshield at the driver. Now the driver, he's looking at this, and he says to the cop, "Why? What the cop he's talking to? Why is that cop pointing the gun at me?" The cop didn't answer, and he says, "Look, that's pretty frightening. Why is he pointing that weapon at me?" And the cop who's talking to the truck driver says, "Don't worry about it. They're rubber bullets." That was his answer. They're rubber bullets. Well, folks, I'm going to tell you something. Number one, the police officer who drew his weapon on that guy in front of that truck, if not fired, he ought to be suspended for a long time. Number two, police officers who know their stuff are never to stand in front of a vehicle. Never. You stand to the side. Why never? Because you never know if A, the person in the car is going to become kind of crazy and put that vehicle into gear and run the cop down. And B, which is so important, is that what if the bullet goes off? What if you're somehow an accident happens? You're going to kill somebody. The point is, you don't draw a weapon on a peaceful protester inside his truck having a conversation with one of your fellow officers. So here's my point again. I used to have a lot of respect, and I still do. I shouldn't say I used to have a lot of respect, because we have cops in this country that do stupid things too. But the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, man, they were the heroes of the world. The Canadian police, probably the kindest people in the world. To see what these officers did on a worldwide stage was troubling, not only to civilians, but to your fellow officers all over the world. You know, good cops don't do bad things. Good cops do what they're trained to do, and they do it to the best of their ability. Do they make mistakes? Yes. But when you have a violent confrontation, that's one thing. When you have peaceful protesters, that's another thing. Keep your guns holstered on a peaceful protest until such time you may need to use it. That's the training. These protesters in Canada, I got to tell you, folks, it was not violent at all. I still waited to get some video footage of protesters, truckers throwing rocks, bottles, burning buildings down, assaulting cops. None of that. I mean, there was none of that went on. So my point is that there should be an investigation. There should be an investigation by the internal affairs departments of every police department, your prosecutor's office, whatever investigative bodies you have, folks, they should be investigating. Now, I'm sure there's got to be some political leaders in your country, some civil rights lawyers in your country that should force this issue. Now, I never want to see a cop get hurt or ridiculed or criticized over something that they did and mistakenly did, because things happen. It's like doctors, they perform operations and good things go bad. Same things in police work. But this was not a good thing that went bad. This was a bad thing that could have went real bad. And police officers need to know better. You're dealing with quiet, peaceful protesters. You don't draw weapons on them. You don't stand in front of their truck. You don't bully them. You don't intimidate them. You don't use the aggressive and unnecessary force that could turn into a disaster. And by the way, that will put the lives of civilians in danger and the lives of the very fellow officers that you're working with in danger. So there you have it with regard to the police aggression from a cop who loves cops, whose family are cops. But you know, the only way, guys and gals in the police service, the only way you get rid of bad cops, break down the blue wall of silence, break it down. You know, cops are worried, well, you know, if I say anything, I'll be called a rat, or, well, then be called a rat. Because, you know, I've had enough of cops that are bad, staining our badge, our history, staining it badly because they go out and do stupid things. That was an outright, and I don't use the word stupid much, but that was a stupid act. That cop drawing his weapon and pointing it at that driver through his windshield, especially when he's having a conversation with another officer. And then you wonder why, Mr. Prime Minister, then you wonder why politicians who support the Prime Minister's edicts and actions, executive orders, then you wonder why the people do not trust you or your government. We've worked so hard. The police service worldwide, have worked so hard to win the confidence of the people who live and work in our communities. And one video like that changed it all. The way the cops, not all of them, I'm sure the majority of police officers in Canada are wonderful men and women and have done their job the best they could under dying circumstances. And my hat's off to them. In fact, I salute them. But it's the one or two that capture the world stage that just destroy all the work the good cops and the citizens in their communities have done in building trust between each other. So those are questions that need to be answered. And I hope and I pray that you all will get those questions answered, which leads me to another very important question that needs to be answered with regard to the citizens of Canada. Why no bail? Why no due process? You know, what the Prime Minister Trudeau did is, you know, that's a kind of a political sound, right? That act, I even forgot the name of the act, folks, but the act that he signed. I'm tired, folks. Please excuse me for not remembering a lot of things. But this act that he signed was martial law, folks. This was martial law. They gave it a political name, right? But the fact it was martial law. So does that empower? I guess it did. That empower the government to arrest people without real charges, no bail, no due process, not being able to explain yourself? I mean, what is this all about? I'll tell you what it's all about. It's about communism. It's about the ideology of Marx, of Lenin, and Stalin. That's what it's all about. And people in politics, people who I know in politics, who I work with in politics, they're just scared to death of even talking about that issue, Marx, Lenin, and Stalin. They're scared to death of even approaching a discussion regarding communism. You want to know why, folks? Because it's the truth. People are not afraid of lies. They like to spread lies. They like to add value to lies. They are afraid of the truth. And the truth is, a Prime Minister of Canada declared martial law, in my view, in their country. And they put citizens in a vice, scaring them to death that you're going to be arrested and you're going to go to jail. There's going to be no bail, and on and on and on. What's with that, Mr. Prime Minister? Don't you think your citizens deserve an answer to those questions? And then the fact of the matter is, folks, this idea of just arresting people way after the protest. When I heard that the prime minister and other cohorts of his stated that, well, you know what, the protest is over, and I think this police chief, this acting chief, whoever he is, reiterated this: the protest is over, and you're going to go home, but we're going to find out who you are. And we're coming to get you. That's what he said, right? We're going to find out who you are. We're going to identify you. We're going to charge you. We're going to fine you. We're going to do this to you. We're going to do that to you. What is that all about? I mean, folks, we don't look to identify burglars in this country, all right? You committed your burglary, you're gone. If we don't have you on video there, if we don't have any proof you're there, it's over. I mean, that's kind of crazy, one a little bit too far here. But my point is this: these are peaceful protesters. They're your citizens. You're turning the government against the citizens. So now, here's the point, folks. Is so now citizens, I'm sure, are thinking, gee, if I go to a protest, if I'm a mother, want to protest something that's going on in my school, the cops are going to videotape me. I'm going to go home, and 3 weeks later, I'm going to get a knock at the door, and they're going to kind of think about charging me with something. They can put me in jail. I'm not going to be able to get on bail. You see, whether it's perception or not, or reality, perception is reality, Mr. Prime Minister, and you politicians in Canada that supported this type of behavior on behalf of the government, you've really done damage in your country. Let me tell you, you've done damage worldwide with your image. If you're worried about your image, you ought to thank God, those politicians in Canada. You ought to thank God that the people conducted themselves in an honorable way. They did, and they deserve. You should be saluting them. Believe me, you should be tipping your hat to them, because they did not disgrace your country. In fact, they probably saved it from the scorn of the world, believe me, over what you did to those citizens. But apparently you want to continue to do this. So I think it's important, folks, you do come together as citizens within the framework of the law, get some lawyers pro bono. I'm sure we've got lawyers here who've worked so hard with us at no cost, and start to address a lot of these issues in a court of law, and then make the necessary changes in your parliament when election day comes. Now, I'll tell you what we're going to do here for you. All right. I didn't know this was going on until you started sending me emails. I got a lot of emails, over 2,000 now. And I was, I got an education on something. And folks, I tell you, you get so busy, you don't realize what your own country's doing. I have been told that in order for Canadian citizens to get into America, you have to be vaccinated. I did not know that. And I don't believe a lot of Americans know that. We thought, hey, look here, you show your passport, you come across the border. And I guess we kind of thought that because on our southern border, anybody could come. You think they're going to ask people from Honduras, Colombia, maybe some terrorists from some foreign country. You think if they cross the border illegally, they're going to ask them for their vaccine passport, folks? No. So one would assume our friendly neighbor, the greatest ally we have on earth, north of us, they're our brothers and sisters. Show your passport and come through. So I'm asking Americans listening tonight, and we're going to continue with this, folks, even throughout the next month or so, is get in touch with our congressional representatives and ask them to suspend that ridiculous regulation that you need a vaccine to get into America. If you need a vaccine to get into America, then every single immigrant, illegal immigrant, must be stopped. They must be checked. And if they don't have a vaccine, their vaccination, they ought to be shipped back to where they come from. And we know that's not going to happen. So that's something I didn't know, and we're going to try to help you out with that. I don't know how successful we'll be. We may be very successful because it's an election year, and politicians don't do much when it's off election years. But they're pretty much on their knees begging for support, and they'll do anything. They'll sell they'll believe me, I've seen it, folks. They'll sell their principles. They'll sell everything they believe in just to get elected. So let's take advantage of that. Not all of them, but a good number of them. So we're going to be working on that for you. But now, a final thought on the Canadian issue. Folks, I'm looking at this as an opportunity that the Canadian people gave the world, let alone your country. An opportunity where you showed people all over this planet that you could protest with dignity, with honor, You could protest within the framework of the law. Yes, a lot of people said to me, well, that's what we did. And some of us got beaten and some of us got arrested. You're absolutely right. But it wasn't you. And everybody knows on this planet, it wasn't you that caused that. It was your government. So you show the world it can be done. And then ultimately, look what happened. You know, the act that the prime minister signed was revoked, right? Now, many people say, well, the Senate was going to vote against it anyway. Do we really know that? You know your country better than I do. Perhaps they were, but I've got to tell you, I'm sure they took note of what you did as citizens and how you did it. Let's take this as an opportunity to show people, you know what? We love our country. We're going to protect our flag. We're going to protect the dignity and the honor of Canada and also here in the United States. And we're going to make sure that when we go down a road like this, we're going to continue it the way we have within the framework of the law. And also this, what I think is a bigger opportunity than ever. And please hear me out on this before I move on to the fiasco we're dealing here in this country. I was thinking about an opportunity that I read about when Dwight Eisenhower was president of the United States in the 1950s. When I was a kid, I just read about this. There were a lot of troubles in America back then. And Dwight Eisenhower decided to take the troubles as an opportunity to do what? Now, you would think that he would be going down a political road, right? Well, to maybe pass this law, pass that law. But what Eisenhower did was take the troubles that America was facing as an opportunity to get people back to where? You ready, folks? Listen to this now, okay? To get them back on their knees, praying to God, getting back to church, getting back to temple, getting back to your house of clergy. And if you can't get there, folks, we've got TV, we got internet. In other words, getting back to God. And I really mean that, folks. I think that all of us, whether we're in Canada or America, we've gone so far astray of what God had created our countries, our lives, our kids, our children, that what he created us for. And that was to love him, to worship him, to depend on him in the hours of need. The heartbreaking letters that I get, folks, I got to tell you, it leads you to almost tears because they're really, you could read the hearts and souls of the spirits of the Canadian people in this case, who are crying out for not help for them, but for their children, the future of their children and their grandchildren. And, you know, I am so frustrated at times because we have power. We do have influence. We've got a lot, you know, physically, mentally, you know, we've got a lot of tools here, but God has the power because he could get into the human heart. So here's what I'm offering up to you tonight, folks. Take this as an opportunity. Seize this as an opportunity to sit back and to say, Lord, number one, thank you for giving us that victory. Small in one way, but big in another. Number two, thank you. Thank you. And continue to give us grace and peace. Give us the guidance we need. Folks, I pray every day. You know, I'll wake up and I'll see 10 doors, right? 10 doors. Well, should I go through that door, that door, that door? And then I'll pray. I'll say, Lord, I'm praying. What door, what door, what door, what door, what door? And then the next day, I'm wondering where the heck, you know, I'm praying, why don't God show me the door? And then finally on the third or fourth day, folks, you know what happens? I get a tap on my back shoulder, right? Not a physical tap, but you know what I'm talking about. I turn around and you know what? Where were you, Lieutenant? I've been here all along. You were looking at those doors. I'm right here with the door that I have opened for you. Now walk through it. You see, folks, so let's look all around and let's pray. Let's pray for Canada. Let's pray for what's happened in your country, for the courageous people, for our children and grandchildren. God has the power that we don't have. Like I tell you, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a priest, a minister. I'm a person. You know, I don't want to say I'm a politician. I don't like that word. How about this? I'm a public servant, okay, who knows that as a result of the prayers of all of you for me, as a result of our own prayers, God's given me this station in life to not only do what I must do for my country and for other countries, but for his kingdom. So take that to bed tonight, folks. You just remember that there's a God above. He loves you and he loves your children. He loves your country. And as long as we stay focused on him and do what we must do according to his rules, we're not perfect, he will bless us. Remember, there's a scripture that says that clearly that says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. All right, now let's move on real quick, folks. I'm going to be a little bit over, but I want to quickly go over a few things with regard to disasters that we're facing here in America. First of all, folks, I've been on the news media just for the past 48 hours, and I got more coming tomorrow. And a couple of things I tweeted out, and then we'll emphasize more of this perhaps Monday night on our regularly scheduled broadcast. Now, this was in the you can't make this up stuff, okay? You probably haven't heard this, but it's true. I didn't believe it's true, but you got to hear this. President Biden's climate czar, John Kerry, warned Wednesday that Russia's war against Ukraine is going to distract the world from what? Climate change. This is what he said. The Democrats in this country, the leadership of this country is concerned about climate change. We got a war going on. We got a war going on in Russia. We may be dragged into that war. Our troops may end up fighting combat with the Russians. I mean, and this guy's worried about climate change. Now, why do I bring that up? Because, folks, this is where the head's at. Remember, I tell you, they don't care about you. They don't care about our freedom. They don't care about our liberty. They care about their agenda. For him to say that at this point in time when people are dying, when there's a possibility that Americans may die, and God forbid, even Canadians may end up going there, he's worried about climate change. Just about 2 hours ago, a reporter, in fact, several of them have asked me what I thought Reagan or Trump would have done in a situation like this. Well, I'll tell you, folks, it would have never happened the way it is happening now. America has always, with the help of Canada, with the help of Britain, with the help of all of our allies around the world, we've always projected military strength, always. And that projection was always the policies of President Ronald Reagan and President Donald Trump. Let the enemies, the opposition, know that if they get out of line, they're going to meet the full weight of the U.S. military. That's why we had aircraft carriers overseas. We used to call it over the horizon. Let Fidel Castro look at his off of his seashore, his beaches. Let him look at the power of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier with about 30 fighter jets on it. That is what would have happened. And if that was to if that did happen, we wouldn't be having a war that we have now, which, by the way, I totally, unconceivably blame Joe Biden for this. And one day in the near future, I'll explain that. So now another question Americans are asking is, why is Joe Biden leading the fight? Why is he the guy up front leading this fight against Russia when it's supposed to be a NATO problem? Where is the head of the European Union? Where is the head of NATO? They should be on the news. They should be talking about what they're going to do with Russia, how they're going to deal with Russia. But no, Joe Biden's doing it. Why? Folks, Ukraine does not affect the national security of the United States. It is a European problem. Then let the Europeans deal with it. I've said to the American people, and I'll say it over and over again, that I've had enough of American blood being spilled over every piece of real estate across this planet. And I see what's coming. I've said this is Joe Biden's Vietnam. Escalation, escalation, escalation. What are we going to do, folks? Think about this. What are you in Canada going to do? What are we in America going to do? Those of you from Ireland, from Britain, from all of the countries around the world that watch this broadcast who are free and love our liberty, what are we going to do if something triggers a ground war with Russia? What are we going to do? Then our national security perhaps is in danger and we'll have to fight. But who triggered it? Who really triggered that? Who caused this fiasco? Back in 1963, John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, they brought us to the brink of nuclear war. Those of you who were around then, you saw what happened. The Russians were sending missiles, nuclear missiles to Cuba. The United States of America, under the orders of President Kennedy, blockaded Cuba. The ships were coming. The ships from the Soviet Union were coming. But they still decided to sit down and talk. And finally, they used their heads. Cooler heads prevailed. You didn't see Kennedy poking the bear. You didn't see Reagan in his time poke the bear. You didn't see Trump poke the bear, but you see Joe Biden every day, every hour, every week. I can't count how many times he kept on putting his finger in the face of Vladimir Putin. What did he expect? So now we're in a situation in the United States of America. You talk about parents being frightened and upset, not knowing what's going to happen. I'm sure Canadians feel the same way. We've never been down this road before. We always had cool heads, smart people in government. But we've got a couple of people by the name of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who have no idea what they're doing. They don't belong there, but they're there. We have to deal with it. So I'll go back with this final thought for the American people. You hear what I just asked the Canadians to do? When you kind of run out of gas, when there's nowhere else to go, we need to get on our knees and pray for divine intervention. We need for God to give us the guidance, the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding to do what we must do, and the strength. That doesn't mean we're just going to sit and pray. There's a time to pray and there's a time to fight. The Bible says that go ahead and pray, but you put your faith to work. And we in this country, the United States of America, we are putting our faith to work. For 2 years, we have been working from the ground up, from local communities, to make sure that conservatives in this country will be elected to office in November of 2022. And there's a suggestion for those of you in Canada and around the free world. I always talk about working within the framework of the law. Well, the law is on our side, and let's use it. We have to make sure that from little communities to big cities, we all come together as one, and we do what must be done. And what must be done is to remove from office, through the process of elections, every single elected official, politician who has not worked in the best interest of our country, of our families, and especially of our children and grandchildren's future. We pray, he answers. He answers, they lose, we win. Folks, thank you for joining me tonight. I'll probably pop in sometime over the weekend, but I will be here Monday night, our regularly scheduled broadcast at 7 p.m. I'm sure I'll have a lot to talk about. Now, once again, folks, we've got now up to 2,000 emails, and we're answering them. Folks, I have a team that reads them, and they read them, and I want to look at every single one of them. Of course, if there's any ridiculous, we do get some ridiculous emails. I tell them to separate them, but for the most part, they're pretty moving. They're heart-wrenching at times, but I do answer every one of them. So if it takes a little time, like a month or so, believe me, we'll get to you. But if you thought it was so important to write me, well, I take that importance to heart. I will certainly respond to you by my own pen. But campaign, 4america.com. See that little blue banner? Just go to our website, go to the contact bar, and just put your email in and name. I don't need anything else. And then we're going to keep your email. That's the way we're going to answer you. And if in the event we are shut down with regard to the internet, we got your email, right? We'll be able to directly send you some videos and the information that we have. In the old days, they had shortwave radios. These days, we got other means to get information to you. Well, that's it, folks. I want to thank you so much. God bless you all. You're all wonderful, wonderful people. And you know what? We're in this together, aren't we? We're in this together. But so was Peter, right? Or Paul, one of those apostles. They were in that boat, and they were all in it together. And Peter or Paul, I forget which one it was, but one of them fellows, they're in the boat. The waves are coming. He looks down. He says, "We're going to drown. We're going to sink." And then he heard a voice. He heard a voice on the other side of the shore. And he said, "Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at? Peter, who are you looking at? Look at me. Stay focused on me. Just stay focused on me." The fact is, the longer we look at our problems, the bigger they get. The longer we look at the Lord, the bigger he gets. And he'll take us from the rough seas and he'll bring us right to the shore. We're in this together. God bless you. God bless all of you in the free world. See you Monday night. I am Lieutenant Stephen Rogers.